Good morning, Dr. Jane. It's great to see you.
Good morning, Anna. It's always good to be together.
Yes, it is. In previous conversations, we talked about facing the many challenges that life drops at our doorstep, like hardships, losses, uncertainty. I thought we could take this time to talk about seeking the challenges and what that brings to our life.
Well, Anna, this is about taking risks for the life that we really want. So it means stepping out of our comfort zone and can include some of the most rewarding experiences that we can possibly have.
Yes, it always looks so interesting on other people, yet it can feel so scary. What if it doesn't work out? Failure's hard to deal with.
Well, taking risk always includes, some uncertainty. So indeed, we don't know how it's going to turn out. And it could result in anything from some embarrassment or a financial loss, heartbreak, maybe even rejection. However, what if the risks that we take really aren't just about the outcome? What about it? What if it's about more the process of taking the risk, the lessons that we learn, the skills that we learn somewhere along the way? What might I gain?
Mm. Well, I've heard that most successful people have taken the most risk and have been hit with the most failures.
Well, and research really supports that premise. The so-called failure isn't for naught if we learn from it. If we practice skills, if we increase our confidence, if we make better calculations in our decision making, it may be worth it all. The most successful don't necessarily succeed with every risk. We tend to grow through the process. We polish skills, learn to face uncertainty, strengthen our resilience and our capacity to recover.
Well, it sounds like risk taking makes us become better people. So then why don't we take more risk?
Well, let's take a look at that. I mean, as we've said so often, the brain is wired for survival and really wants life to be in the safe lane. So it's going to seek what is familiar. And the thought of trying something new for some people can really trigger high levels of anxiety and worry. It just doesn't feel safe. So the fear may be irrational, but even though it doesn't fit into logic or reason, it may rule the day. So there's also this assumption that the level of risk has a direct, or the level of fear has a direct correlation to the level of risk or the level of safety that might be jeopardized. And this isn't necessarily so. Our emotional reactivity may have no accuracy when compared to the level of the risk in its reality.
So for some people, avoiding risk is a way to manage stress and anxiety.
Yes, that's right. And I think it's only fair to say that not all risks are necessarily good risks, or productive risks. The risks that we're talking about and that we're suggesting are really more calculated risks. They're not reckless or impulsive. They're calculated. They're often referred to as intellectual risks because they're risks with the full intention of improving our lives or enriching our lives, and not just that feel good now kind of a target. It's about doing something that exposes us to learning new skills or trying out new ideas with the possibility of maybe failing at it.
So these are the risks that open new doors in our lives. So there's a purpose and a plan behind them. And we know that we're treading into uncomfortable territory, right?
Well, that's right. That's right. I read this quote and I'm not sure who to credit, but the quote is, we don't know what we like because we only like what we know.
We're so predictable, aren't we?
Yes, yes, we are. And frequently closed-minded. And when I say closed-minded, I'm not meaning to be critical. It's just that for some of us, it's really very okay not to rock the boat in life.
Well, and there are probably reasons for that, I would think.
Well, sure. There are certainly people who've had traumatic experiences, or maybe great disappointment or significant losses, or have unresolved grief, or maybe they've lived a life of really hardship. Life has been difficult. So they would just naturally want to seek a life of predictability and safety. I mean, this is understandable, but um, there's also other categories of people who avoid risks, people who are really into accommodating and people pleasing, because very often taking risks they feel make others uncomfortable. And the fallout of that feels just too unbearable. So the best way in their judgment is to play it safe, and then everyone will be happier. Of course, everybody's going to be happier except for the person who forfeits their sense of adventure. And for others, taking risks is about living life without regrets. So it's about growing into their best and highest selves, or uncovering, buried talents or gifts, or maybe learning new things or having new experiences. Anna, and it can also be about our inner growth, because with taking risks, calculated risks, we build our confidence. We're able to face certain fears and apprehensions. And very often we can tap into a willingness to, and a courage to really act upon something that's important to us. So this is strengthening our resilience. We're adapting to change. It's also learning to trust ourselves and our intuition. What's that hunch that kind of pulls me in this direction that I'm interested in? It's loving ourselves enough to be uncomfortable for our own growth. And this also influences our innate creativity.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Jane, these are remarkable patterns. What are the different kinds of positive risks that people are frequently taking to develop these?
Well, there are many, Anna. And there's a wide variation. It can be something like, taking financial risks, could be around savings or investments or budgets, or health and safety risks, changing up our nutrition or our exercise, or learning to meditate. Could be something like social, which is, it could include things like setting up and enforcing boundaries, speaking up for ourselves, or speaking up for something that we believe is really important. And then those recreational risks, learning to do something new, whether that's mountain climbing or learning to ski or swim, and for a lot of people, occupational risks is a real challenge. It's maybe earning that new credential, taking that new training, or switching up the career track. And then we also have intellectual risk taking, trying something new, learning something new, maybe something as simple as reading something that I wouldn't normally read, or investigating something that I wouldn't normally take the time to investigate.
So, really, any dimension of life offers opportunities for risk taking.
Well, I think so, Anna. I think the main requirement or main requirements for taking risks that really provide growth are that it has to be that it's calculated for our improvement in some way. And it has to also align with our deepest values, our passions, our purpose. And in doing this, it breaks through many of the negative core beliefs that have blocked us. So it also, in doing this, it revises those beliefs. So it revises kind of the lenses through which we see ourselves and the world. It's also taking on something new. So playing to our best selves, even in the discomfort, to know that I'm going to get through it, even with the uncertainty, that I'm still going to try it out, and facing the fear, facing the self-doubt, in learning not to overthink something that I want to do, calculate it, and then plan it, and then carry it out.
And without any risk taking in our lives, what would that start to look like?
Well, Anna, for many, it's really very okay. As we said, some lives are meant to be lived more protected. Life is good. Why do I want to switch this up? But for others, it means really living in a self-made, constricted world without much fulfillment. Sometimes with people who, like themselves, aren't really in pursuit of any dreams. So that can be okay. But then there's also others, who really want to operate out of the level of curiosity that it takes to take a risk. So it means For those folks, their curiosity really kind of stirs up this there's a big world out there, and I'm going to get some of it. So they're more likely to say yes to risk taking. They're more likely to say yes to opportunities. They possess kind of an openness. And even if they don't say yes, they don't say no right away. They at least investigate it. Their curiosity very often leads them, to a full gamut of, different foods or people or cultures or places. So it's about, yes, clearly places them out of their comfort zone, but the curiosity and the excitement of it really amps up the interest and enthusiasm.
Yes, I can see that happening. We've talked about the quote, knowing and not doing,
Mm,
not knowing, or knowing and not doing, not knowing.
is not
It
knowing.
occurs,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, did I get that right,
You
Dr. J?
did. You did.
Okay. And it occurs to me that taking a risk is the doing that validates the knowing.
Well,
So,
I think it's a good point, Anna. I really do. The key is that we want to take risks because they move us forward. We want to balance our emotions and our logic so that we can strategize the risk. So it's about, asking questions like, do I feel stuck? What keeps me stuck? What are the fears that I have? What are the losses that I anticipate? It might be what would others say that keep me from saying yes? Who will be affected? And and what will I regret or what will I possibly regret if I don't take this risk? So it really takes courage to know our truth and to face the self doubt and the fear and the uncertainty and want more for ourselves. Really want more productivity, more health, more enjoyment, more vitality.
well, it can feel lonely on this kind of path where fear is the usual barrier for us.
Well, I think you're right. And with that in mind, I always think, it's a good idea to talk through a risk with a trusted other. It's preferable that that other is not someone who's going to be affected by the risk. They don't have anything to gain or lose either way. It's also important that we really notice how we sometimes get into those shoulds. We talked about that gap of I'm here and I think it should be here. It's kind of, stay away from that. And it's also important to look at, would I do it if there was no one else that I needed to consider? How important is it to me? And the other piece is, what are my strengths? And will these help me move through the risk and achieve the goal that I'm looking for?
Yeah, so I guess to start, we don't have to take on Mount Everest, right? We can, over time, work up to bigger risks.
That's right. Mount Everest, maybe someday, but not initially. We're not talking about sensationalism or thrill seeking here necessarily, although if that's your thing, go for it. That's your thing. Get it done. Love it. We're suggesting that life can be more interesting, it can be more fulfilling if we heed the call from within ourselves to challenge our fears and our biases, challenge that old conditioning. That old conditioning may be keeping us in an old, unsatisfying, familiar life. Let's
Yeah,
shake it up.
I agree. I agree. And you must start somewhere.
Well, yes, and I suggest let's start small. Let's start with small, measured risk taking that increases our confidence on our sense of what they call self-efficacy, that ability to accomplish it. I can get it done. And try a little positive psychology, like affirming ourselves with I can do it. Or why not me? Why not me? Be resourceful, plan well. Let yourself feel the discomfort. Know that it's okay. Even though this doesn't feel great and I feel, angsty or uneasy with it, if I really want it, it may be worth it. And the other thing is learn from mistakes and be open to learning from mistakes. They can offer a wealth of information.
Well, let's think about, small starter risks that get things in motion.
Well, let's just hit a laundry list of them, Anna, because it can be something as simple as, for many people, you know, unplugging their tech devices for extended periods of time. You want to see people into real risk taking. Yeah, that's a starter. Or find a new hobby. And when we stop putting all that time into our devices, there's more time in our lives to do other things. So a new hobby, a new skill, try a new recipe, learn a foreign language. Let's learn to dance, change up our routines, learn to meditate. If you have time not doing the same old, there's going to be space for this. We could also set new boundaries in our relationships and enforce those boundaries, or maybe volunteer in an organization that we really believe in, or find different ways to meet new people, whether that be join a hiking club or a class, could be creating and seeking, a healthy kind of a mind-body routine to improve our health, and going back to devices, step away from the TV, train for a race, maybe a marathon or a walkathon. Say yes to opportunities that are offered. And the other piece is continue to add ideas to a list of possible risks that you could take.
Yes, and all of these are very doable. And that's the point, right? They're doable. So just do it.
Well, yes, it really is about let's step into this risk. Let's be courageous. Let's be brave. Let's build, confidence and strengthen resolve, and let's make life happen. Life is what we make it. We have the power within us to say yes. So it's about let's really seize the opportunity of today.
Wow. Yes, yes, yes. We are all ready to seize the opportunity, Dr. Jane. Thank you.
Thank you, Ani.
Until our next conversation.